Back on TYT Sports, Francis and Phil. Check out all the links in the description where to check out Phil's podcast, Beyond the Pitch. We just talked about Manchester United extensively, about things that they need to adjust moving forward. But Phil, Arsenal, as the audience probably is already, I'm going to comment and not even going to listen. They know that I like to rag on Arsenal, and they don't give me any shortage of weaponry to attack them. You know, there's severe problems in this team, and it stems, in my opinion, from the top down. We may differ on that. I don't know how your thoughts are on Arsene Wenger, but it's really difficult to understand what way Arsenal's going to go next season. Still split reports. Arsene Wenger staying. It's blah blah blah. It's all going to be a very similar outlook as to what has been. But at the moment, 6th place in the Premier League, embarrassed out of the Champions League by a far superior opponent again in Bayern Munich. What is going to happen, do you think, or what needs to happen to this team in the summer?
Well, first of all, Arsenal are almost a business that happens to play football.
Yeah.
Because the priorities at that football club are all financial, they're all business. Top 4, doesn't matter if we have a team that can compete in the Champions League just as long as we get there. And that permeates all the way through that football club.
Yeah.
How many times do we see Arsenal, a muscle memory, just finish 4th? That football club needs radical change top to bottom. You look at all the top coaches in Europe today, most of them are young. Arsene Wenger is an older guy. Raphael Honigstein wrote a terrific article about his methods being out of date 10 years ago. I think you have a guy stuck between 2 eras. Since 2004, Arsenal haven't won the league. That coincides with when the money came into Chelsea, the money came into City. He's not comfortable buying players. You can see that. And he always seems to react in the transfer market late. I remember when they lost 8-2 at Old Trafford, he went out and bought Arteta, he went out and bought 4 or 5 players just based on that alone. You never feel like anything is that thought through with Wenger.
Yeah.
Was a great coach, I'm sure he's a great coach, but connecting with this young generation of players is very different than in any other era, because these kids aren't motivated the same way players were in previous years. And I just think Arsenal need a young coach who, if you look at Simeone, his teams symbolize him.
Yeah.
That's what Arsenal need.
And that's a good point you brought up, and actually kind of is going to go into what I was going to discuss. You have one of the most phenomenal talents in the world at the moment in your team, in Alexis Sanchez, and he does not look happy.
Nope.
And he looks like he's looking elsewhere. And what frustrates me more than anything is when I look at these articles, people are writing articles as, which manager fits the Arsenal style? What is the Arsenal style? As I always ask, what is the Arsenal style? Because if you're going to sit here and tell me that it's the same style or the English Barcelona, well, what have they got to show for it? A few FA Cups in between, haven't won a league in 2004. If you're going to play by a style, then you need to show me per results, per trophies, that style is continuing to work. How many times have we seen managers being put forward? I literally had a conversation with an Arsenal fan and I said, Diego Simeone. And he went, it doesn't fit the Arsenal style, does he? What, losing? That's the Arsenal style at the moment. Diego Simeone fits a team and builds that mould around him. So if you need to go in and blow up everything that you thought was Arsenal, then why are you not even considering doing it? Diego Simeone, you're absolutely right. Every single player on that team looks like they are living and breathing his mentality. They're working. Antoine Griezmann, I remember I watched specifically 2 years ago. It was a Champions League semi-final. And the amount of effort he was putting in defensively, you wouldn't even imagine that Mesut Ozil would be able to survive 5 minutes working like that, because he works based on what Diego Simeone has been teaching. If you watch some of his defensive drills and training, I'm sure there was one video that circulated, went viral last year of the pre-season. They didn't just go out and needlessly run. They were running as a direct representation of how they would defend. There was players running diagonally 90, 100 yards, closing down a ball, running by another, and they were thrown up because they were so exhausted. But that is represented in that team. Arsenal's problem is a mentality. You have so many talented players in that team that you cannot sit there and say that it's just a player's fault every single year. And I get there's players that don't pull their weight, but that's a representative of the manager. I specifically tore apart Arsenal in the first leg against Bayern Munich, and it was Xhaka who happened to be the one that I was tearing apart, because there was an example where Bayern Munich waltzed through their back line. It was Thiago. He played 3 passes and he was able to move over the space of 20 to 30 yards without one player tracking him. And it ended up that Mustafi was caught between 2. Xhaka was wandering in his own half. And I feel like that's a manager's problem. Yeah, a player has got some issues that have to be addressed, but having been a player and having watched some of the best coaches install their mentality. I think that Arsenal have been lacking that mentality for several years now, lacking workers and leaders, and that starts from the top and works its way down.
But like, you're talking about a football club. It's the most expensive football club in the country to watch. It's £100 a ticket in some parts of the Emirates. When have Arsenal ever behaved like a big club, ambitious in the transfer market? When was the last time Arsenal signed anybody ahead of a top club? If a top club wants a player, they'll get them ahead of Arsenal. They also sell to the rivals. Robin van Persie goes to Manchester United. You know, Man City were picking them off.
Bakary Sagna, Clichy, all
Alexis Sanchez. There are two players that you would say would get into a Bayern Munich, would get into the world's top teams. Their future's uncertain. Why do you wait 18 months left on Alexis Sanchez's contract to start negotiating? At that point, you've lost the negotiating edge. To me, they do it obviously for financial reasons because they don't want to renew too early and they bank on the player wanting to stay. But if Alexis Sanchez is at the same point that Robin van Persie's at, do I want to stay at Arsenal? Because the likelihood that I'm going to be guaranteed trophies here is small because he can go anywhere. That's the problem. And with Wenger's uncertainty, I think it helps Arsenal if he leaves.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the players want to say this, but I think they'd appreciate working with a young manager that brings something new out in them. Arsene Wenger, what more can he say that he hasn't already said? It's the same failure every year. And they're mentally weak. And for a football club that size that spends the money they do, it doesn't translate into success. And as the buck stops with Wenger for me.
I agree. And it's, as you mentioned earlier on the clip, it's a reactionary decisions. It's not decisions out of planning. It's not decisions they'll think to themselves, you know what? We need to plan ahead and maybe even set yourself an objective as maybe this will be a plan we'll put in place for a couple of seasons from now where we'll really challenge. It's reactionary, as you mentioned, signing players after losing 8-2, signing players because you've waited until the last moment and you go out and you sign, what's his name, Perez? Remember
from Deportivo?
What has happened there in his signing? He was signed on, 24 hours before the end of the transfer window? Mustafi's a good signing. I think he's a good player, but there's still too many reactionary decisions made by Arsene Wenger rather than planning ahead. And the proof is in the pudding. You just mentioned Van Persie. Let's just throw out a bunch of other names out there. Sagna, trophies. Clichy, trophies. Fabregas, trophies. All these players have left and went and won trophies. And Arsenal, what are you going to tell those players, to Alexis Sanchez, to stick around for? Oh, because next year we'll play some fancy football and everyone will want to come watch and pay £100 to watch the fancy football of Arsenal. It's not going to cut it anymore.
Well, Arsenal already are being left behind in the race to recruit for next summer. So now you're hoping that you unearth a couple of gems. And so again, Arsenal should have won the league last year. They had, they should have won it. That was a brilliant opportunity for them to win it. You see, at United, they finished fourth. That's not good enough. They will put more pressure on their manager to finish first. At Arsenal, that's good enough. That says everything to me. I think they buy players with the intention of finishing fourth, and if that's where they finish, then they're happy enough with an odd FA Cup win.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure the Arsenal fans are already letting us know what they think in the comments about it. But it comes to the point that when I'm actually fetching in the comment section for a good debate from Arsenal fans, most of them are conceding that despite how much you love your club, there is problems there that have to be addressed. And I've never really thought about how reactionary they are to signings until you kind of brought that point up. They do almost panic buy. And that is just a point that at this point, when you're a team that's trying to win Premier League titles and you're trying to win everything else, that's not good enough anymore.
Nobody should be more prepared in the market than Wenger.
Yeah.
He's the longest serving manager in the Premier League. He should know exactly what he needs. And it never seems like he does.
How many talents have we... I remember there was an Arsenal starting 11 that could have been, that was posted one online, and it was a phenomenal team. Some of the best, he was always there or thereabouts to some of those players. And there's been plenty of players out there that could have been handpicked before. Dimitri Payet was a player that was unhappy and could have been lured into another club, but no, they sit back and they wait, and then he ends up running his course at West Ham. There's plenty of players that you can bring in if you've got an objective of winning a Premier League. I understand that you want to buy the biggest names to go out there and win and compete in Champions League trophies, but Leicester proved that you can win a Premier League with a good, tight-knit team that works hard together. There is players out there that you can buy to do that. I think that's a very similar objective to what teams like Tottenham have kind of based their foundation upon now. And now Tottenham, I don't care what you're singing about, the old song about how Arsenal are always better than Tottenham. Well, I think it was gradually coming to this. And now Tottenham have far surpassed Arsenal, specifically this season.
I mean, Tottenham have done exactly what Wenger used to be good at.
Yeah.
They've built a young team. Look what they paid for Dyer. Look what they paid for Dele Alli. Two of the best midfielders in the Premier League. Dele Alli just plays off Kane, sensational. Harry Kane come through the Spurs Academy. Arsenal don't even do well what they used to do.
Yeah.
Kante was the heartbeat of Leicester last season. A guy that was brought off the peripheral in France. Why wasn't Arsenal in for him?
Yeah.
Are they not? I mean, Arsene Wenger knows that French league well. So for me, I look at this football club, massive football club that should be successful, but fail in all the areas. And here's the thing, Francis, when you have a long-serving manager like Wenger that has complete autonomy over the football club, when he leaves, as United found out, the vacuum behind that, because Arsenal are going to have to evolve as a football club to become modern, like the way Chelsea are.
Yeah.
And that's going to cause a big problem.
Well, let us know what you guys think, Arsenal fans, in the comments. What do you want to see happen to your footballing team this summer? Do you want to see everything kind of be stripped down to the bare bones and rebuilt? Or do you have faith that Arsene Wenger is going to be able to return silverware for the first time in... I always struggle to remember how many years it would be. That's
He hasn't won the league since 2004. Won the FA Cup, what, 2 years ago?
Jesus. All right, let us know in the comments and check out all the links to Find Phil on social media and all that good stuff. We'll see you soon.